See,
dharmic principles and capitalism, can they coexist in today's modern world?
right, definitely they can. So that's my argument, right? Because see, modern principles of capitalism work primarily on the role of institutions, right? Institutions, rule of law, law and order,
Yeah,
and the implementation of rule of law and order. They form an important pillar of modern day capitalism. Besides free market, free enterprise, and in some cases democracy as well. Free spirit and things like right.
correct.
So the role of what we're trying to say here is the dharmic model is not a substitute for these things. The
Mhm.
dharmic model is a complement to these things. See, the role of institutions, rule of law, and order, despite capitalism's relentless focus on it, has a lot of shortcomings, right? So, how do you sort of, because the reason there is a shortcoming is because inherently people have a way of life that they've been living for thousands of years, just
Correct.
independent of state, independent of capitalism, independent of any entity that you're talking about, right? It's the cultural fabric that people have been having for a long period of time, right? And then modern institutions come into play, right? And all these terms like capitalism and all these things come into play,
Mm.
and we somehow adjust ourselves to this framework and live our lives, right? But there are certain situations where the 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 the, the modern implementation of some of these ideas are in conflict with this way of life that we're talking about, right?
True.
So that is when you find that the uptake of this institutional, so not institutional, the uptake of these modern principles is quite low when there is conflict with this natural way of life, right? So what Kautilya argued long time back, and what I am, what we are arguing now is that this, doesn't necessarily need to be, this or that. You could have a rule enforcing institution based society and a capitalistic model, but also a dharmic foundation which can complement it. If there are issues that the institutional setup cannot solve, a more refined understanding of these dharmic principles, a more dharmic society will eventually automatically, like an autopilot, deal with some of these issues, right?
Mm.
So, for example, right, let's again say, if you take any public policy, right, if let's take the Swachh Bharat initiative, right, which we're all, one of the reasons why the Swachh Bharat initiative, became very successful, especially in the rural areas, because it basically took a dharmic idea, this Saucham, this
Mm.
cleanliness, we're all clean in our houses,
Mm.
made it into a sort of a, because of the prime minister and the huge machinery that is there, made it into a social movement, sort of created your dharmic consciousness, so much so that you want the neighborhood to also clean.
Yeah,
So that even in rural areas, if you notice, even remotest of areas, now it's become a social movement
correct.
where people see is their dharmic obligation to keep even the society clean, right?
Mm.
So instead of a policy making without all this understanding, on a normal effectiveness would be say 70-80%. Now, because of a refined thinking, refined approach to this subject, same subject, we are having a 90-95% effectiveness. I think that's where the difference is, right? Where a sort of a dharmic model serves as a complementary effect to
To
this
build
capitalistic
mass
framework that we already have.
consciousness. To
Correct.
kind
So I
of
think
build mass consciousness.
correct. So it tries to be a complement to rule of law and order
Yeah.
and institutions and things like that, not as a replacement.